Welcome to The Beat. I'm Antonia Hilton, in tonight for Ari Melber. We start with a MAGA reckoning. Donald Trump ripping his own base in a way we have never seen before, slamming MAGA true believers as, quote, stupid and foolish for demanding answers about the Epstein files. It's an extraordinary turn of events. The president, known for his cult-like power over his base, suddenly engulfed by the very conspiracy theory he fueled. Today in the Oval Office, Trump trying to distance himself from Epstein, falsely blaming Democrats while insulting Republicans for getting, quote, duped.
It's all been a big hoax. It's perpetrated by the Democrats, and some stupid Republicans and foolish Republicans fall into the net. And so they try and do the Democrats' work. I call it the Epstein hoax.
Will you ask Attorney General Pam Bondi to release more documents to finally put this controversy to bed?
You know, whatever's credible, she can release. If a document is credible, if a document's there that is credible, she can release. I think it's good. But it's just really, it's just a subject. He's dead. He's gone. And all it is the Republicans, certain Republicans got duped by the Democrats.
In a Truth Social post, Trump calling Republicans who want more information weaklings, claiming he doesn't want their support anymore. This all follows a memo from Trump's own DOJ pouring cold water on conspiracy theories about Epstein's death and his alleged secret client list. The problem is Trump and his top deputies stoked those very same conspiracy theories. Now, new calls from Republicans in Congress for testimony and more transparency.
It's a very delicate subject, but we should put everything out there and let the people decide.
I'll let the Department of Justice continue to carry out what they need to do. I do think there needs to be more transparency.
But whatever they have, it needs to be transparent. It needs to come out.
I think moving forward, we need a special counsel. That has got to happen.
I'm big on clarity and transparency, and that's good reason people don't trust government, either party.
But you don't believe what the Justice Department is saying?
I don't know. No, I don't. I don't trust them.
And we have Marjorie Taylor Greene calling for Ghislaine Maxwell to testify before Congress, and Lauren Boebert saying a special counsel should be appointed, and even floated Matt Gaetz, of all people, for the job. Meantime, inside MAGA's media ecosystem, while some figures are backing off the Epstein story, many others are still digging in. Right-wing personality Laura Loomer, who has direct access to Trump, warning the Epstein scandal could, quote, consume his presidency. Others weighing in.
They've got videotape, and all of a sudden they don't. You know, you have the director of the FBI on this show saying there's no tape. If there was, nothing you're looking for is on those tapes. Like, what? Why did they say there was thousands of hours of tapes of people doing horrible? Why did they say that?
Right.
Didn't Pam Bondi say that?
I mean, we're getting flooded with thousands, hundreds of thousands of comments that are very unhappy about this. President Trump was elected primarily to go after the deep state. We want to go after the deep state.
It seems like you think your base is stupid. That's how I feel. I feel like Trump thinks his base is stupid.
That, my friends, is where we start. Donald Trump cornered by the most extreme elements of his base on a conspiracy theory that he peddled. Joining me now is Christina Greer, political science professor with Fordham University and author of How to Build a Democracy. Also with us, Rick Wilson, co-founder of the Lincoln Project and host of Rick Wilson's The Enemies List podcast. Rick, I'll start with you and what you make of this mess. Trump's followers, the MAGA base, they've forgiven him for so much over the years. I mean, take it all the way back to the Access Hollywood tape. So why is this the thing now that is sticking?
You know, he has had a decade of, as you point out, basically a free ride with his own base. They have taken all the abuse, all the lies, all the chaos, the scandals, and basically said, we love this. This is what we wanted. But 10 years ago, the Epstein story and this QAnon-driven conspiracy theory of Pizzagate wired into the Republicans' brains that there was a global conspiracy by the Democrats of sex trafficking and child abuse and all this stuff, and it became a central part of the Republican identity. Trump's strongest followers again and again and again promoted this. Trump himself promoted it. Donald Trump Jr. promoted it. They all said, We need to know what's in the Epstein files so that we can go after the Democrats. When they say deep state, they mean the Democratic Party. And so by doing this over and over again, it became seared in the imaginations and the minds of MAGA voters. And now Trump is telling them, never mind, you're stupid. I think, as Tim Pool, one of his strongest supporters, said today, he's nuking his own base.
Christina, do you see it as that serious? I mean, we have seen people who are otherwise very consistently in lockstep with each other, like on their messaging. Megyn Kelly, Laura Ingraham, for example, end up on kind of opposite sides of this in recent days. Just this week, Megyn Kelly kind of trashing Laura Ingraham. I want you to take a listen to some sound and we'll talk on the back.
You now have some MAGA influencers clearly on direction of the White House saying, okay, I'm done. You had Laura Ingraham go on her show on Fox News on last night being like, oh, well, after there was the pile-on at Charlie Kirk's Turning Point event, where all this Republican infighting, and then kind of suggested she's moving on from Epstein. Okay, she was part of it. I like Laura, but she 100% stood up there and fanned this flame.
Christina, do you think these fissures are real? Is this exposing something real among that base?
Yeah, Antonia, I'm of two minds because as Rick mentioned, there's been little to nothing that can move his base away from him. And don't forget, we need to back up even before 10 years ago when Donald Trump trolled then President Barack Obama, saying that, he demanded to see his birth certificate. His birth certificate wasn't real. He wasn't an American citizen. And when Obama finally acquiesced, and it said that he absolutely is indeed an American citizen, Donald Trump said, no, well, that must be fake and there's nothing to see here. So he's been able to pivot consistently, and his base, just like schools of fish, follow him along. This one is slightly different because there are some people who are saying, well, since you brought it up, you brought up this catastrophe. You're the one who started the storm because you said that there definitely was something there. And now you're saying, let's just walk away and forget it. We've got other things. It's just the Democrats being Democrats. I don't know if this will stick because in the past, they have not been moved by sexual assault allegations. They have not been moved by criminal and civil allegations against the president. And when he's not president, they haven't been moved by any of the language, the vitriol, the hatred. The list goes on and on. So I'm torn as to why this particular instance would actually stick, leading us into the midterms or even beyond that.
Rick, as we do head toward the midterms, we're already starting to see Democrats try to seize on this. They are calling for more information and transparency around it now. They're speaking more frequently about Epstein, and typically Democrats are a bit less comfortable in these sort of conspiracy and conspiracy adjacent spaces. But do you think there's an opening here for them to genuinely connect with voters on this specific issue?
I do, Antonio, because look, this isn't a conspiracy that Jeffrey Epstein was a monster. It isn't a conspiracy that Jeffrey Epstein trafficked young women. It is not a conspiracy that Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein were close friends and associates for over a decade. It is not a conspiracy that he traveled on Jeffrey Epstein's Lolita Express airplane. It is not a conspiracy that Donald Trump, was quoted saying, oh, Jeff and I are friends, we party, and he likes women on the younger side. None of that's a conspiracy. All that's real. All that's in the face of people right now. And Donald Trump is trying to say, no, that isn't true. These thousands of pictures of me and Jeffrey Epstein partying over the years, that's an imaginary, creation of the deep state. What we're trying to see here, and I think Democrats are very wise to do this, if they say, let's put it out there, no matter where the chips fall. If Bill Clinton's in there, okay, so be it. But if Donald Trump's in there, he has to take accountability not only for the actions he took when he was with Jeffrey Epstein, but also now for trying to engage in a government-wide cover-up of something of massive public interest, a fire they set, a catastrophe they caused. This is the secret of all this really is that Donald Trump, Occam's razor is very sharp and very true. And if Donald Trump wasn't in these files, he wouldn't be hiding them. If they hadn't spent the last couple of months going through these and coming back out of the room going, uh-oh, Donald Trump would be fine with releasing this. If it was going to hurt the Democratic Party, Donald Trump would send this out tomorrow. So I think he built this machine of this conspiracy, and now he's caught in its gears.
Christina, do you think these are safe waters for Democrats to wade into? I do have to say, I mean, even just in my personal life, I have friends and family members who maybe didn't, they cared about the Epstein case and saw it as horrific, but I don't think they cared about it as a sort of political story. They weren't seeing it with these dimensions that Trump's followers for so long have been so dedicated to viewing it through. But now they are. They are starting to think there is a massive cover up here, that perhaps there are members of both political parties implicated here. So what do you think the Democrats and moderates who don't normally engage in the space should or should not do with it?
Right. And we know that the Democrats have not been great on offense or defense these past few years. But I think it's a lot more effective for voters to hear it from Republicans, to sort of let them start to eat themselves and have them push this story out. Because if the president consistently says, this is just the Democrats trying to come after me, they're vendettas, then half the people within his own party actually demand justice. And the Democrats will hopefully focus on economic issues and trying to rebuild the social safety net and articulating to voters how they have less because of Donald Trump and his party taking away goods and services from their hard-earned tax-paying bills and the jobs that they've had securely in an effort to clean up waste, which we know is just tax breaks for the rich. So if the Democrats can stay on an economic message, a pocketbook message, which we know is effective for people to go to the polls, let the Republicans actually deal with, as Rick so eloquently said, the fire that their own president set. And now that it's quite frankly out of control, but they've been doing this for over a decade. We saw this with the Tea Party. We saw this with Donald Trump during the Obama years. And now they've gotten something that they can't really put back in the bottle. And they need to see it through.
Rick, quickly, I have to ask you, anyone who's even just a casual observer of this president, they know he does not like to be embarrassed. So do you think eventually someone is going to be held accountable or sort of held out as the person responsible for this entire mess?
Pam Bondi has become the GOAT in this. She's become the target. She has become the one that the MAGA folks blame for this. She didn't speak MAGA as fluently as Kash Patel and Dan Bongino did. They seem to be undercutting her every step of the way. I think she'll be the one who goes if it happens. But the problem with that move, even if he fires her, it will not satisfy the MAGA base because they still want more. They still want the secret sauce underneath all this investigative material. And even if she goes, this problem doesn't go away. Jeffrey Epstein may be dead, as Trump says over and over and over again, but the story most certainly is not.
Well, Rick Wilson, Christina Greer, thank you both so much. Coming up, why one Republican is already trying to backpedal from his vote for Trump's attack on Medicaid. Plus, our live interview with Congresswoman MacIver on the Trump push to target lawmakers just like her. And the Obamas address all those rumors in a brand new interview. We'll show you the tape. But first, the conspiracy roots of the MAGA meltdown. Our very own Brandy Zadrozny is here in studio when we're back in just 90 seconds.
I lost a lot of faith in certain people. Yeah, I lost because they got duped by the Democrats.
Duped by the Democrats? Fact check, Trump and his MAGA followers were the ones pushing Epstein conspiracies.
Seriously, we need to release the Epstein list. That is an important thing.
We have flight logs. We have information, names that will come out.
What names are in there, man? You understand how many powerful people probably want this thing to desperately go away?
This is another government gangster operation. So if you're able to, you'll be...
Yeah, I'd certainly take a look at it. I'd be inclined to do the Epstein. I'd have no problem with it.
Those claims had a very real impact. And now new polling shows 67% of Americans believe the government under Trump is, quote, covering up evidence related to the Epstein case. That includes 59% of Trump voters. Now, in a twist you could not make up, Alex Jones, of all people, is accusing Trump of cult-like behavior over his demands for silence on Epstein.
If you talk about this, I'm going to excommunicate you. Well, you're not the Pope, bro. Anyone who disagrees with anything I say is banished. Now, I'm not saying Trump land is a cult. The Democrats are the cult of hating reason and logic and common sense. But when Trump starts behaving like that, it starts getting into cult territory.
And joining me now is Brandy Zadrozny, MSNBC senior enterprise reporter and an expert in all the dark online weird spaces that many of us avoid for our mental health. Brandy, when you've lost Alex Jones, you can hear him in that clip, like struggling with the cognitive dissonance of it all. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I mean, well, last time he got on camera, he said he almost threw up and he was crying. So this is kind of a step up, I think.
He's doing better, you mean?
7 stages of grief,
Okay.
perhaps. Yeah, it's really a nightmare for Trump. This is like somebody made a joke that it was like they all got into a meeting together and decided the worst way to handle it, and then they did even worse than that. Like they couldn't have handled this any more poorly. And so, like, what do you do now? What's the answer, right? And so, if they want to get their base back, the good thing is about this, for them at least, and I hate to give them tips, but it's just to release as much information as possible, because as one of your last guests said, there's no way, like Trump can always, for the base at least, he can always get out of whatever he does. He had that famous quote, "I can shoot someone on Fifth Avenue." He can pretty much do anything he wants. And unless there's something really, really horrific in these files, if it's just a name, I can't imagine what it is that would make his base leave him. The only thing that will make his base angry is withholding this information.
So you think even if he is in there, he doesn't lose his base?
We don't know what's in the files, right? We really have no idea. But if there was a crime that was that obvious, then someone would be charged for it, right? It was in investigators' hands. There was It's not like we have no evidence to suggest they buried all of this. So evidence would seem to suggest that whatever's in there isn't so bad that it would be such a crime that it would alienate his base or make his base angry with him.
Break down for me why, for so many on the right and in these sort of conspiracy-addled spaces, Epstein matters so deeply. I mean, people get emotional over this stuff. And people who otherwise kind of take Trump's bait and his explanation, his story, they're not buying right now that this is all just about Comey and Obama and Biden, which Trump has kind of tried to twist this to be the last few days. It doesn't seem like they're accepting that narrative, which tells me there's something deeper here. What is it?
Well, every good conspiracy theory has a kernel of truth, right? And this one has an ear of corn. It has really at the center of it, a horrific story with hundreds of young girls abused by a man who seemingly used his wealth and connections to evade any real sense of punishment, right? He got the sweetheart deal. He did get a sweetheart deal. There are questions surrounding that sweetheart deal that have never really been answered. But at the heart of it, I want to remind us, is those hundreds of girls who that sweetheart deal never considered, never consulted. They left them without real justice. And the same thing is happening now. We're talking all day long about the Epstein files, the Epstein files. What about the girls who are at the center of this? What about the victims? How do we protect them? I think that's really important. But going forward, that's a reasonable person would be concerned with that, right? Like your family members who really care now about it. Let's talk about the conspiracy theories that have been born out of this. There is a central conspiracy theory that has gone from Pizzagate to QAnon, and that is that the world, and before that, the protocols of Zion, and conspiracy theories that are hundreds of years old, and that is that there is a big cabal of powerful people, usually they're Jewish, and they control the world, and they either dine on the blood of children or they sexually abuse children. That is the conspiracy theory. And that exists today in various forms. For the MAGA faithful that really embrace this conspiracy theory, Trump is the one who will save us all, and he always has been. And so for Trump now to say, losers, there's nothing here. Look at what we're doing over here.
He was saying today that he doesn't even really want the support of people anymore who are into this.
Yeah.
I mean, it made me wonder for a second, like if I had hallucinated that more than a dozen right-wing influencers were invited to the White House not that long ago, did photo ops with binders, like That happened, right?
Well, that
Brandy,
was
I didn't make that up.
No, but that was the beginning of the betrayal, right? Because we have strung the, and by we, I mean them, they have strung their supporters along for so long. We're going to get it. We're going to release it. Here's some binders full of things that have already been released. And that was the first crack in the dam that I saw when they released those binders and humiliated those right-wing influencers in front of all of their supporters.
They genuinely felt humiliated by them.
They said the word humiliated, that they brought them there, they humiliated them. That's why everybody was against Bondi at first, is because she was the one that passed out the binders. So that fault was with her. And that was the first crack in the dam. But now, again, this unforced error that I'm hearing, somebody tell the man to stop tweeting. He is, with each time, he just makes it worse. It's kind of wild to see. But again, the thing is, I truly believe, knowing this population, that he can make it better in an instant by giving them some real information, whether that's good for victims, whether that's good for people who are implicated in these files that didn't do anything wrong but are about to get, WikiLeaks or Pizzagated by this, data dump. That remains to be seen.
Well, I don't think the path out of it is going to involve the president losing his phone anytime soon. If there's one thing you can be sure, every day when I wake up, I'm like, well, what happened on Truth Social?
He's just going to post through it.
He's going to post through it. Okay. Brandy, thank you so much for being here. Always great to see you. Later in the show, the Obamas talking politics and getting candid. Plus, I'll talk to Congressman LaMonica McIver, indicted by Trump's DOJ, on Trump's push to target other lawmakers. And heat on Republican Josh Hawley, trying to undo Medicaid cuts that he just voted for.
I think these future cuts to hospitals with Medicaid is a mistake.
More shakeups at the Department of Health and Human Services as Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. moves to fire both his chief of staff and deputy chief of staff. The New York Times reporting, quote, both were seen as practical and effective government veterans. The turmoil at HHS coming amidst a continuing measles outbreak, with cases reported in more than half of U.S. states, and a looming crisis of healthcare access stemming from cuts in Trump's budget bill. Some Senate Democrats are looking for ways to close the gap, introducing a healthcare initiative to support universal healthcare, saying accessible, affordable healthcare should be non-negotiable. The bill is unlikely to go anywhere while Republicans control both houses of Congress and the White House. But officials from both parties have expressed concerns about the health impact of the Republican budget, particularly on Medicaid and rural hospitals.
I think these future cuts to hospitals with Medicaid is a mistake.
You are at risk of losing 5 of your rural hospitals in this one congressional district.
So it means that healthcare is at risk.
I don't want rural hospitals in particular adversely affected at all.
People in healthcare, hospitals, they're in a panic.
Joining me now is Senator Ed Markey of Massachusetts. Senator Markey, you were one of the Democrats who introduced this healthcare bill. What would it do? And do you expect any buy-in at this point from your Republican colleagues?
Well, the Republicans just voted 2 weeks ago to have a $1 trillion cut in Medicaid, in the Affordable Care Act, in Medicare. And it's going to have a devastating impact on rural hospitals across the country. I released a report 2 months ago that 338 rural hospitals could go out of business because of these cuts that the Republicans just voted on. And now the Republicans are returning with crocodile tears in their eyes about how concerned they are about rural hospitals. Well, they knew that going in, and they also knew the impact on community health centers. They also knew the impact on nursing homes. They also knew the impact on Planned Parenthood. They also knew the impact that it would have upon the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of hospital workers who will be laid off. They knew all that, and now they are saying that they're concerned about it. Well, it was only 2 weeks ago. So the legislation, which I've introduced with Ro Khanna, just says we have to give more power back to the states. We have to have individual states have the ability to create a healthcare system that does, in fact, provide for every single resident of that state. But the Republicans are absolutely adamant about keeping the cuts, no matter what they say, because they need the money for the tax cuts for the billionaires. That's what this is all about. It's a transfer of money, especially from the poorest and the sickest and the most elderly in our society into the hands of the richest, who are already benefiting from our great country. So that's what their whole plan is. And there is precisely zero chance that the Republican Party is going to come back and all of a sudden fund rural hospitals in our country. It is not going to happen.
I'm curious, as you sort of describe it as a sort of crocodile tears situation here, as now this rescission process moves forward, we're looking at billions of dollars of additional cuts to things like foreign aid programs and public broadcasting around the country. We've heard colleagues of yours, like Senator Lisa Murkowski, express concern about the direction Republicans are moving. I want you to take a listen, and then I'll get your reaction on the other side.
There has been probably no issue, no single issue that has drawn out more interest across the state of Alaska than support for public broadcasting. The Corporation for Public Broadcasting is there for reason, and I think it has stood the test of time.
Senator, what do you expect to happen now, as it looks like the vast majority of Republicans are planning to move forward with this regardless of the concerns that Democrats have raised or Republicans like Murkowski?
Well, Senator Murkowski is right. Alaska has been hit with a 7.2 earthquake on the Richter scale today. And the local NPR stations are sending out the warnings of a potential tsunami right now. So obviously NPR, the local stations, especially in the remotest part of our country, they are the early warning system. They are the emergency alert system. And that's just one example, but there are hundreds of them with regard to the role that public radio, public television plays in the lives of small town America, in the same way that rural hospitals are the center of life in rural America. They are the center of it. And the Republicans, in a 2-week period, are devastating the local rural hospital system in our country, and they're devastating the local public broadcasting system for the remotest parts of our country. And those are the parts that disproportionately Republicans represent. They are much more likely to be red states. They're much more likely to have voted for Donald Trump. And yet the Republican Party has turned on these people. And again, they're looting the money, even from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, to send it to billionaires, to send it to the wealthiest people in our country. It is unconscionable.
Senator, do you think the voters right now, they know a lot about the big, beautiful bill, now mega law, but do you think they're connecting these dots? Or is that going to be on Democrats to hit the road and make sense of this for people?
Well, right now, the public already by 20 points says that they did not like the big, beautiful bill in terms of those Medicaid cuts and the impact it's going to have upon their local communities. That's why you're starting to see some Republicans walk back their own vote just 2 weeks ago. And the same thing's going to be true very quickly in terms of those communities that had come to rely upon their local public radio station or television station, which could go dark in the very near future without the funding that the federal government has provided over many, many decades. So yeah, the dots are going to get connected. It's already happened on Medicaid. It's already happening on the education cuts. It's already happening on the environmental rollbacks of the Trump administration. And he's only, right now, Trump at 37% favorability in his handling of the economy in our country. The public is being hit by the tariffs and their costs in their own daily kitchen table budget balancing of where they can spend the limited incomes which they have. It's all coming home to roost, and it's going to build as each month goes by heading into the elections of next year.
Senator Markey, thank you for your time tonight. It's great to talk to you because I know that you've been involved in there have been waves of these conversations, particularly around the cuts to public broadcasting and what stations like PBS and NPR represent to people. And I know this is not your first time speaking out about it, but it now seems like we're really at the very edge. So I thank you for your time tonight.
And thank you for focusing upon that critical issue. Thank you.
Of course. Coming up, Barack Obama and Michelle getting personal and political. You'll want to hear what they have to say to Democrats. But first, Congresswoman LaMonica McIver on Trump's abuse of power. He's gone after lawmakers. Now he's targeting protesters. We turn now to the Trump administration cracking down on ICE protests, with troubling news out of Washington state, where 9 Spokane residents have been arrested and indicted for taking part in protests over a month ago. The defendants facing charges of conspiracy to impede or injure officers, plus assault charges for 2 of them. Those 2 remain in custody while others have been released pending further proceedings. In June, hundreds of Spokane residents gathered to protest the detention of 2 young men who are legal immigrants, police deploying smoke and pepper balls, according to the local reporting. The former Spokane City Council president is among those charged, speaking out after the clash.
How do you deal with a situation where something wrong is happening, and you've done all the legal things correctly, the law is being broken, and I think at that point, civil disobedience is, to me, the only other option.
The mayor is calling the arrests politically motivated, saying, quote, "The Trump administration's weaponization of ICE and the DOJ is trampling on the U.S. Constitution and creating widespread fear across our community." This as ICE arrests are up dramatically, more than doubling in 38 states since Trump took office. People are continuing to speak out across the nation through the right to protest. Joining me now is Democratic Congresswoman LaMonica McIver from New Jersey. She was recently indicted by the Trump Justice Department after clashing with police outside a Newark ICE detention center in May. She has pled not guilty. Congresswoman, thank you for joining me this evening. What do you make of Trump's DOJ now targeting citizens, protesters, for speaking out?
So it's a pleasure to be on with you today. Great to see you. I mean, once again, it's another example of this administration being cruel and trying to stop people's First Amendment rights and their ability to be able to protest against the administration and the things that they are doing. I think it's very important, and that's why we see more and more of individuals all across this country who are holding protests and speaking out about the cruel things that this administration is doing each and every day.
There's been some recent Gallup polling showing that, unprecedented numbers of Americans actually right now support immigrants and immigration. I'm curious if you see a tide turning because of the kinds of images that we've seen, of what happened to you, Mayor Ras Baraka, of what we've seen happen to protesters in places like Washington and Los Angeles. Do you think the conversation is changing here? And does that put Democrats in a position where on an issue where normally they're seen as having to be on their back foot, this is Trump's winning thing, can they take more ownership here now of the conversation around immigration and justice in the U.S.?
Well, I think the conversation is changing and people are maybe feeling a little different because Trump promised us that he would be arresting criminals. And I think we all can get behind, arresting and holding people accountable who have committed crimes. But when you hear of these different instances happening where people who are being arrested who are literally at work, targeting workplaces, arresting grandmothers, moms, children who are suffering from cancer, revoking student visas, and deporting students who are attending school here legally. I mean, all of these different cases that we see that these folks do not have criminal charges and they have literally been detained, I think it changes the conversation and Americans' feelings about how this administration is handling immigration. And it's cruel and it's wrong, everything that they are doing. And Democrats have been speaking out about it. Some people, even Republican Americans, are speaking out about it as well. We've seen that on many occasions. But at the end of the day, it's cruel, and we should not be handling immigration reform in this manner.
Are voters, you think, aware of the extent to which this new budget law supercharges ICE's budget? I mean, ICE now is larger than the FBI. It has a bigger budget than many foreign countries' militaries. Do people understand what that might mean on a day-to-day basis on the streets of our country?
No, I do not think so. I think this is the reason why, it's my position as well as other elected leaders all throughout this country to be able to talk about what this big, ugly bill is doing, what it has done, and what it's going to do. Because some of these things in this bill, like, taking the Americans off of Medicaid, restricting SNAP benefits, some of these things may not go into play right away. Some of these things are set to go into play after the midterm election, and people will be blindsided. unexpected, right? They're going to be surprised because people are not paying attention. People are absolutely exhausted from this administration, and they have literally turned off. I talked to the people of the 10th Congressional District that I represent in New Jersey, and folks are just like, look, I'm tired. It's depressing. It's exhausting. I have to take a break from listening to the news of what's happening. And so, some people are not informed or engaged as they should be. But look, it's our job. It's everyone. Everyone has a job to play in this, holding this administration accountable and bringing to light the things that they are doing each and every day.
Congresswoman, thank you so much for your time tonight. I'll quickly just mention that I know you introduced a bill to recognize and commemorate the 1967 Newark riots. So continuing to draw all those connections between police power and protest here in the U.S. So thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you so much for having me. It's good to be on with you.
We'll be right back with breaking news from the Trump Justice Department. We're back with breaking news. New tonight, 3 sources confirming to NBC News that Maureen Comey, a prominent SDNY prosecutor and daughter of former FBI Director James Comey, was fired today. She played a big role in prosecuting Epstein, as well as Ghislaine Maxwell, and in the Diddy trial. We cannot confirm a link between Trump and the firing at this time, but Trump has been going after Democrats, including James Comey, the FBI reportedly opening a probe into him last week. As for her role in the Maxwell case as it pertains to the Epstein files, Politico reporting, quote, a judge upheld the FBI's denial of access to the bulk of the Epstein records. The judge's ruling rested largely on a formal declaration from a federal prosecutor deeply involved in the Epstein and Maxwell prosecutions. Assistant U.S. Attorney Maureen Comey, the daughter of former FBI Director James Comey, she argued that disclosure of the investigative records was likely to interfere with the appeal in Maxwell's case. The exact reason for termination remains unclear, but sources say she was terminated pursuant to Article 2 of the Constitution. Joining me now is Barbara McQuade, former federal prosecutor. Barbara, thanks for joining us on this breaking news tonight. Let me get your initial reaction to the early parts of what we know.
Well, I think this story is chilling. We don't know. Perhaps there is some misconduct that has not yet been reported that accounts for her termination. But this message about it is pursuant to Article 2 is very consistent with some other terminations that have been occurring in recent weeks. Emails sent from Pam Bondi to federal prosecutors and other federal employees simply saying, you are hereby removed from federal service pursuant to Article 2. Article 2, of course, is simply the provision in the Constitution that gives the president the power over the executive branch. It does not account for the kinds of civil service protections that federal employees are entitled to. And I think this has been a push by Trump and his administration to suggest that there are no such thing as merit protections. Those are unconstitutional because nothing can prohibit a president from doing what he wants to do in managing the executive branch.
So again, knowing that there's much about the motivation behind this that we don't know yet tonight, are you concerned that this is in connection simply to her relationship to James Comey, someone that we know President Trump does not like, going back many years now? Or is it possibly connected to the conversation over the Epstein files right now and the president's need to sort of show supporters, show people who've raised questions about that case specifically, that there is some kind of accountability, some action taking? What pieces of this are standing out to you?
Yeah, in light of Trump's history with mendacity, it's difficult to know what the truth is here. And I think we should wait and see what further facts develop. But I can't help but notice that she is an accomplished prosecutor. By all accounts, has a very fine reputation in the Southern District of New York. She was assigned to some very high-profile cases, including the Maxwell case, as you mentioned, and the Diddy trial that recently was completed. You don't give those kinds of cases to people unless they are very strong prosecutors. So that says to me she has skills that are not the kind of thing where someone would be fired simply for incompetence or inability to do the job. Perhaps it is a smokescreen designed to suggest that somehow she's the one who is preventing the Epstein files from being released. But of course, that's not true because the FBI recently announced that they've reviewed it and there's nothing there that should be released. This retribution you can't help but take Donald Trump at his word when he said that he would seek retribution against his enemies. Jim Comey is certainly high on that list. We know from reporting that there is an investigation at DOJ about him. There was an investigation about him when he simply posted some seashells arranged in the form of 8647 a few months ago. So he certainly is in the crosshairs of the Trump administration. And so I suppose the best way to hurt him would be to hurt his daughter.
Barbara McQuade, thank you for joining us so quickly on this breaking news. We're going to be right back. We're back with that breaking, developing news. Maureen Comey, a prominent SDNY prosecutor and daughter of former FBI Director James Comey, was fired today. She played a big role in prosecuting Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, and in the Diddy trial. No word yet on why she was fired, but it comes amid Trump's very public attacks on her father and the MAGA meltdown over the Epstein case. That's going to do it for me tonight.